cheaper. Above and beyond these, we have Invest India here on call. I would also say that other than just PLI schemes, PLI schemes and medical device parks, which address already established companies, we also need to invest into and create incubators which seed and develop both technologies and next generation of entrepreneurs. When we talk about medical devices, it's not any one technology, but it's the confluence of many, many different technologies. And the industry as a whole can only thrive if the ecosystem is here, which in India today is still at a fairly nascent stage and it needs to be developed. This can be done in a very effective way by having thriving incubators which give a platform to entrepreneurs that are looking at creating new companies and new technologies. Once either entrepreneurs or existing businesses have the right platform, the Indian government should also look at how do we support both financially and otherwise companies that are looking at export markets, international markets, through R&D incentives and subsidies that enable us to enter into markets with very, very high entry barriers. Let me be the first, let me transparently say countries like US are tremendously big markets, but have prohibitive entry barriers. And very honestly, Indian companies need help. We need help, both financial and otherwise, if we are to overcome those entry barriers. We can learn very much from our neighbors across the Himalayas. The Chinese tremendous job of helping companies go international by way of subsidizing their regulatory costs, by way of subsidizing their registration, clinical trials, R&D, etc. This is something we should look at emulating as well. We need to reinstate either MEIS or likewise schemes. These were tremendous benefits for us, and it is, of course, a big disappointment it has gone away. But while we have PLI, again, I do state that PLI scheme has a certain accessibility issues as well. We should look at how even small-scale players can access the export incentive schemes, because truly it is the small MSME players that need them more than anyone else. One point that gets repeated all the time, and again, I'll be here to repeat it as well, procurement of made in India products in our own government institutes and government purchases. Indian-made products continuously need to be encouraged and given preferences, which we still do not have. And last and foremost, we need to continue building up our infrastructure. While we have the program and we have several perks coming up already, especially in South India, in Telangana, as well as the AMTs at Park, we will need many, many more. I think 2 parks will not be enough. If we are to conquer the domestic market as well as the international markets, we need a lot more resources and infrastructure that allow us to share not just the physical infrastructure, but also put in place common and shared services in which all of us can participate and gain economics of scale. With that, I hand over my time back to Vivek. Thank you very much, everyone, for again your time and in this healthy and vibrant discussion. Like I said, this is truly a wonderful time to be in medical devices and be in India. I think India has a very bright future, but within that, I'm confident that medical devices will lead the way as one of the industries that follows in the footsteps of pharma industry and becomes the medical device hub for the world as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kataria, for sharing those thoughts. Thoughts coming in from Mr. Kataria on how manufacturers like him would like to see things easing out and creating more investments and collaborations, as well as expanding in overseas markets, and how we can actually draw in a lot of collaborations from foreign investors or foreign companies and have them invest into manufacturing in India with Indian companies. I think it's good time for us to ask Nitin to share his views quickly. You've been into it for quite some time. How do you see, and I understand you were already traveling overseas. I hope it was for a collaboration to make your organization bigger and stronger in this sector. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Vivek. I think the points which have already been discussed covers more or less everything. But I come from a different perspective that the healthcare and education in India were not so much of a priority, but this pandemic has shown that the India does need to focus on healthcare and the education sector, and this budget itself was quite a good budget as they have increased the GDP spending for healthcare. So that shows that the government is very much interested in focusing on healthcare and building healthcare. Now, with the passage of time, like if I look into things that I think the next 20-30 years, people in India are going to get more affluent for sure. The lifestyle will get better for sure, and the technology will also get better. There is no doubt about it. As the technology is getting better, the manufacturing will also become easier. So what important for India will be that we should adopt the new technology quickly. The adoption of technology is going to be the key in making India self-reliant. Otherwise, we'll again miss the bus. And this new technology is definitely, it puts us at a level playing field with anybody who is there, because even the big companies, they are trying to learn the new technology. So I personally am of the strong opinion that we do need to be adopters of than being adapters to technology. So manufacturing will become more scalable and also it will become more simplified. India is a big market. Everybody knows that, but Indian market has its own. It's different. It's not like a stabilized, standardized, or systemized market. We've got different kind of treatment. You've got allopathy, you've got Ayurveda, but each of these areas is an opportunity, and for all. I do these different medicines, but right now the most critical for India is on multiple axes. On the prevention, and second axis will be on treatment. So I think on the if we can prevent it, if we can screen it properly, the treatment part can be minimized, and definitely that is where the focus should be on early diagnosis and detection. Catch them young, and you solved a lot of problem. Unlike a few years back, people didn't know where to get technology, how to get into partnerships or JVs. Right now, with the this internet regime, we are having virtual meeting softwares or tools. People are working any part of the world at different time zones. So I think the R&D collaboration, R&D is much easier than before. You don't have to travel, or you don't have to do much things. You just need to know how to adapt with that technology. On these lines, I really appreciate the government's initiatives of focusing on healthcare. I would definitely like to compliment Invest India, because we had to buy some land, and Invest India helped us procure it very smoothly with minimum interference. I also feel that there are a lot of schemes which the government has rolled out, like BIRAC, Deity, and other things, where you can get a lot of funding. We ourselves have worked with BIRAC, and BIRAC has, for one of our R&D projects, supported us in crores of rupees. So, for those who have a desire to move India forward, there are a lot of support systems by the government. It's just that people should be willing to use them, or people should be aware that these things do exist. For manufacturing, I think know-how and technology, I think everybody can access now. It's not as difficult as before. What I would like to say is that we should not try to copy technology. We should try to innovate technology. If you copy technologies, the prices will go down. But if you in technology, you become a change leader. You are able to add more value to the doctors and the patients. And also, these kind of things will put India on a better edge. 90% of the high-end, I'm not talking of the overall medical devices, but I'm talking of the 90% of the high-end medical equipment, especially the electronics, are imported in India. And that is where a great opportunity is there, where we should, look into working. The rest of the areas, I think the India already has a lot of surplus, good, excellent manufacturers. Even if we try to enter those areas, there is less to add value other than entering into a price war. And bleeding. So better is to enter those areas where I agree there's a longer gestation period, but if you can overcome that, high-end medical devices is a big opportunity. It's like a virgin market because nobody's making it in India. So I would definitely recommend that high-end medical devices should be looked into. For those high-end medical devices, the making in India is possible. And like we have in made in India the endoscopes, the video endoscopes, which are used in the GI, urology, and other areas. And I think it's doing pretty well. Of course, the government schemes, government preferences are required. The acceptance by the corporates can be better, but the corporate itself, they have a challenge because the influence by the big giants is quite strong. But if the doctors are more accepting, I think the Indians are now very high quality. Indians and shoddy work at all. So moving forward, I think that the 45,000 crore high-end medical devices is not a joke. It's a big opportunity, and if the government can work on the easing the certification aspect, which is a big challenge because some of the devices being FDA and CE, because the Indian certifications are not defined, BIS are still evolving. And so I think certification is a key area if the government can work out. And in order certifications, what is more important is to have those testing laboratories, right? The AMTZ, for example, is really doing the first thing what the AMTZ did was they got the testing facilities and testing laboratories there. Now, of course, for us, because we are based out of Delhi NCR, going to AMTZ is not so convenient. But yes, the certification testing facilities should be there in abundance. And once these testing labs and certification is there, it will actually help get forward faster. What I've seen is that a lot of people are struggling for the testing laboratories, and they have to wait, and the facilities are sometimes overburdened. Certifications are also sometimes not time bound. So these kind of things need to be really worked on in order to boost the healthcare production or manufacturing regime. On the materials and technical skills, yes, the people are definitely there in India, but the skill upgradation is very much required because the specialized medical devices, they need a different mindset. It's not one skill. You need sometimes optics, mechanics, then the different materials are there. So how do we have this multi-skilled? So in come back again to our case, that when we had to make these endoscopes in India, it was optics, mechanics, and electronics. We got the Japanese to work in India, and the skill was imparted in India. And today I can happily say that, like the automobile sector, Indians have learned very fast. Indians can do it, and it's very easy. So scaling is not a challenge. Scaling, I think it's a mindset issue. Materials is definitely an area where Indians do need to see, explore, and identify how they can get different materials and different grades which are acceptable for the medical devices. The cost of testing and the cost, even if you have a testing facility, the cost of testing and the cost of compliances is quite huge. That 20 lakh rupees a year. Now, I don't think it is going to be quite a challenge for us. I'm sure it's for most also. So there has to be some support by the government in subsidizing the cost of certain.
Thanks, Nitin. Thanks. Devices as a very big opportunity for India to get into. And of course, clearly setting out and saying that certification and testing, which I heard Mr. Butadi also talking about in one of the previous webinars as well, to be a key area where you end up spending a lot of time and money, more importantly, in getting these things done. Skilling, you've given a thumbs up with quick learners, materials, something to focus upon. Definitely. Good points there coming in from Nitin. I understand Dr. Prasad has a stopwatch at 5 o'clock, sir. If you give us another 5 minutes, I'd like to squeeze in Mr. Pawan Chaudhary to speak up before you decide to, go after your address. Is that okay with you, Dr. Prasad? All right. Thank you. Thank you. So we have another great voice to listen to, Mr. Pawan Chaudhary, Director and CEO of MTI, as well as the Managing Director for Vigon. Over to you, Pawan, for your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Vivek, and it's a pleasure to be with you all. So, because my time has been condensed, I will try to average my speech. So, the point which I would like to make is we need to capitalize on our strengths while we build new ones. If you will allow me to share a slide and open the share piece to me, I will share one brief slide with you, which is quite graphic. Yeah. So let me see if I can share that. Hold on. Yeah, can you see the slide?
Not as yet.
Okay.
Did you get the slide share option?
Yeah, I got the slide share option.
Okay, if you hit on the slide, which could be on your desktop. Yes, I think it's coming on.
Is the desktop coming on or is that slide coming on?
We can't see the content right now. So, but it's just saying that we are viewing your screen, but we can't see either the desktop nor the slide.
Anyway, I think there's some problem here. I'll try one more time. Otherwise, I will just share the data through. Is it coming now?
No, not as yet.
Okay, there's some issue here then. So the point which I was wanting to make is that we are getting rising amounts of foreign direct investment. And from Medical Technology Association of India, our cohorts are contributing most of it. We should allow this to come, maybe channelize it towards existing manufacturers or dependable budding manufacturers to form joint ventures, etc. Let us not do anything which destabilizes or crimps this flow. Allow this flow to come. The second point which I would like to make is healthcare worker training is also one of our strengths. Let us try to build it with the help of global companies as well as with the help of local companies and the government. The third point I'd like to make it is R&D is, in terms of R&D in MedTech, world over, if we see who are the top 3 countries who are the biggest contributors to employment in R&D in MedTech, you will see India coming at the 3rd position. Though in terms of market size, we are far below. That means somewhere in the R&D piece, we are doing very well. And that is born again by investments of companies like Medtronic of 1,200 crores just made last year in Hyderabad, only in the R&D center. That means we are strong here. Let us not disturb any of this. Basically, the point which I am saying is, नहीं जमते ये जमीन आसमां तो छोड़ दे इनको, नहीं जमते ये जमीन आसमां तो छोड़ दे इनको, लेकिन पहले नए जमीन आसमान पैदा कर ले। सो हमें जो जियो पॉलिटिकल चेंज आ रहा है उसके अकॉर्डिंग we need to nurture the domestic companies in a stronger manner without destabilizing the fertilizers which are coming from the global side. So that was one point. Then there are new areas of collaboration and new areas of growth which have just sprung up because of COVID. COVID has brought telemedicine. Telemedicine is not only beneficial to the doctor because it saves his time and reduces waiting room pressure, or because the patient is benefited because he doesn't have to go to the hospital, risk infection. Payer is benefited because the payment is low. The government is benefited because the the healthcare worker deficiency shortage can be handled. There are other reasons also why telemedicine is an omelette which will not turn back into eggs. And that we have found through our research that many people, out of the 10 crore people who have gone on the telemedicine platform in the first quarter, many of them are saying that we are going there again and again because it protects our dignity also. That means you do not have to risk the confrontation with a healthcare worker who may be arrogant or a doctor who may be indifferent. So this omelette will not turn back into eggs. And as I said at an earlier platform, that the only similar analogy which I can think of, like telemedicine, which has helped all the cohorts, was when Henry Ford brought in his assembly line manufacturing, which benefited the worker because his number of working hours came down, his wages went up, benefited the employer because his profits went up, benefited the customer because his costs went down. So when you help so many people simultaneously, what it did, this was Henry Ford's assembly line was the biggest attack on communist ideology rather than any capitalist ideology. Such are the examples which move your market to a particular space. Telemedicine is moving the epicenter of healthcare to the home also, not only hospital, home also. So new opportunities are coming up of collaboration between medical technology companies or healthcare companies and real estate companies. Micro hospitals are going to dot our landscape. We are, as Dr. Subramanian said, preventive and lesser period of hospitalization is the stress. That means lot of healing is going to happen at home. Homes will change to handle, for example, senior care. Your bathrooms will have shower benches. They'll have grab bars. Your walkways will change. Pandemics change. Not only hospitals, pandemic also change homes. A lot of opportunities are coming there, and we should tap these opportunities and become examples which the world follows. Because when we become examples which the world follows, we automatically will attract more investments. Then the geo-commercial currents which are changing, those also should be looked at very carefully. I think Mr. Bhargav just said that that we should look at how we can handle the change which is coming in the Asia Pacific preferences of preferential locations of doing business. In whole of Asia, we are the only country which has all these points which I am going to share. It has a similar political dispensation as the West. It is a democracy. It has shared a history of peace with the West. And it is the only country in Asia which can stand up to the challenge of a rival of the West, which is China. And we have a much better record in terms of IP and patent right protection. So automatically, this sector should become the supply chain preferred partner of US. And we should popularize this. Invest India is here. We should again and again point out this fact before the West that you were earlier getting your things made or components made in China. You have to get them made in India because the risk is very high. China is a country which does not listen to you, but we listen to you and we have the courage to not listen to China and Asia. Nobody, no other country has the courage to not listen to China and Asia. So those are the kind of geo-commercial currents we should tap. And lastly, what another speaker, I think Nitinji said, the new crucibles of entrepreneurship, or I think Mr. Bhargav said, incubators also should see how they can really incubate. BIRAC is for example, one of the examples. From MTI also, we nurtured a Kanpur-based IIT Kanpur-based company to help them manufacture ventilators. We realized that BIRAC is giving a lot of funds. In fact, for another company which I advise, which is a large Indian multinational, we $2 million grant aid from the government. It is the largest Indian multinational in medical technology. That means the government is willing to bet money on the right people, provided they also can show them the light that we will use it judiciously and to not only elevate us, fill in vacant spaces and niche demand areas. So this is what I feel we should do. Another point which was raised was Singapore, maybe China, but Singapore also. Singapore provides help to the budding entrepreneurs also. How? I was with the Prime Minister some time back, and I had the good fortune of telling him that Singapore is giving $50,000 every medical technology company for 3 countries. That means you get $150,000 to just go to those countries and handle the regulatory, the branch office expense, etc. That is a very big support. So I feel if this kind of support can come from the government, it will be great. Not only for the small company, but also for the mid-sized company and large companies. So this is what basically I would like to say, that there is really a churn happening, and that churn is being driven by the government right from the PM. PM is very interested in medical technology. It is driven because of geo-commercial changes, and it is driven because of the demystification which is happening about the medical technology sector. COVID has underlined the importance of medical technology. Till a vaccine comes, all patients are being handled by medical technology only. So ventilator is not only that space over the door. Now my house help also knows what is a ventilator. And right. So that is how the demystification has happened. I think it's the golden era is about to start for this sector, and this is how we can maybe expedite it.
All right. Okay. So I think yet another highly optimistic note after what we heard from Mr. Kutadia and Mr. Nitin Mahajan, about this industry. And of course, the perspective of the geo-commercial currents or the changes as what we talked about, R&D in MedTech. So I think new areas of growth. And of course, we will and we do support the FDI coming in and in these sectors, so that the collaborations can happen on the technology front. Otherwise, we will never be able to get into high-end medical devices being manufactured in India. So thank you, Pavan, for all those very, very important points. And I would like to request our key speaker, Dr. Prasad, the Joint Drugs Controller, to share his thoughts on the specific area, how we can dwell into an era where we are not only the pharmacy to the world, but we are also the medical devices. And to become the pharmacy of the world, we cannot undermine the support of the CDSCO. and its state offices who've done a great job by facilitating the industry to rise to that occasion and be a pharmacy. So over to Dr. Prasad, the Joint Drugs Controller, CDSCO, Government of India.
Thank you for the opportunity given to me. Are you able to hear me? Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Prasad.
Opportunity given to me. Our previous regulators for the two series of webinars, Dr. Mani, the DCGI, and Dr. Ishwar Reddy, the Joint DCGI, has shared their views to the earlier two webinars. And thanks for the opportunity, PhD Chamber of Commerce, and listening to all the experts in the domain knowledge of medical devices, the great inputs, having all heard from the various experts from the industry and the stakeholders. It appears that the regulator is the last part of this system. It's because, the government has evolved from policies to rules to regulations to schemes. So what is left now? It is that the process wherein we expect it is an evolving area. As we say, it is pharmacy, India is pharmacy of the world. And probably in the next decade or so, India should be the medical devices of the world also. So in that aspect, as a regulator, I share my views that how the national health policy in 2017 has evolved into a Make in India program for the requirement of the health coverage of this country. And from there, the journey has started to make the medical device rules, a separate rules evolving out of the drugs and cosmetics rules. The ambiguity has been cleared. There is clarity. There is a transparency in the system, digitalization of the entire licensing process and procedures and approvals, harmonizing our guidelines from the CDSCO on all the areas of the devices, the class A, B, C, and D, harmonizing these devices in terms of the policies, the framework, the rules and regulations in terms of licensing, the quality management systems, the testing process, the standards, harmonizing with the Global Health Task Force, and creating a conducive atmosphere and a robust ecosystem for the manufacturer. Here, the regulator is also in the learning process because the regulator has an expertise in the pharmacy. The regulator is also having many challenges as the technology evolves. The country we are dependent in importing the devices, and we need to have Atmanirbhar. That is wherein we should reduce the dependency of the imports, have a great manufacturing hubs for which the incentive schemes are there, facilitate of regulations. The regulator has become a facilitator because we need to evolve from that system. So today's webinar, we say that India is going to be the attractive destination of MedTech. Yes, definitely. It's not only it should be at domestic manufacturing, reducing the dependency of imports, but also have exports similar to what we are doing what we have moved from pharmaceutical industry, where we are importing in 1960s. We have become self-reliant. In the 21st century, we have become even exports and one of the largest exports of pharmaceuticals and the generics. To that stage, we expect that a decade or so, within a decade or probably earlier, India should be a global manufacturing hub similar to generics for the medical devices also. In addition to that, what we expect is one of our experts has told there should be some issues which needs to be addressed. The certification program, the testing facilities, the AMTSZ park at Visakhapatnam, the MedTech parks, wherein the common testing facilities, biocompatibility testing facilities, sterilization common facilities, also is arranged in such a manner to make the facilitate the manufacturing areas. In addition to that, one of our experts, I'm listening to that, similar to BIRAC, why can't we have a hub of technology innovation? We have in Hyderabad, for example, the vaccine industry, the biotech, in Shamipet, there was all vaccine hub. It has come. Hyderabad has become a vaccine hub. No one thought that India is today in a position how we have come out with the vaccines. This is all because of 2 decades back when the incubators, the biotech incubators were started in the Genome Valley in Hyderabad. Similarly, apart from MedTech parks, we also think that one of these, I totally agree that we should also have the hubs or the incubators for the medical device innovation. India has a large pool of engineers. India has a large pool of pharmacists. But where do we land in the area of the medical devices? As you all know, apart from medical devices, the in vitro diagnostics also. So COVID has forced us to learn certain things, make for certain things for our self-reliant, like from PPE kits to RPCR diagnostic kits, etc. There are many areas we are still importing medical devices, X-ray machines, CT scanners, stents, implants, which is still we are relying on imports. So in order to reduce these things, we need definitely a robust ecosystem. As the experts have told, the domain experts in this medical device industry has told how it should be and what it should be. So this is an evolving thing, and we have high hopes. All these challenges are being taken should be converted opportunities and to make it a great success in this medical device industry. So there are constraints, there are challenges and constraints in this area, which we are all in the learning process. The regulator is in the learning process. Even some of the investors in the industry is also in the learning process, because we have all been importing these devices at this point of time. A conducive atmosphere in terms of investment schemes was also evolved. In terms of regulations were also involved. In terms of policy framework was also evolved. And because the last speaker, just I was listening, a geo-commercial system or a geopolitical scenario has also changed. So all these paves way for India being a great hub for pharmaceutical industry, great hub for the medical device industry, similar to the pharmaceutical industry. Reaching the sustainable development goals, universal health coverage, and covering as part of the Ayushman Bharat and many other health schemes. We expect that the medical device industry is going to be a great boom for this country and for the entire industry, and these schemes and policies could be much more successful. The targeted areas where the government is thinking, where we really do not have in those areas, the implants, the dental implants, and many implant areas, and the radio imaging devices, the X-ray machines, etc. We are all importing, but we have the skilled manpower. We have the manpower of educated manpower. Why can't we use these resources? This is an important area where we need to evolve it. We need to have an R&D innovation, as one of our speakers told, 3rd largest in the world. So why can't we utilize these resources? Why can't we use the educational institutions? Why can't we create more hubs and all for the research purpose to create more innovative? And what is the demand of these? Because there is a demand and supply dynamics is a very important issue, wherein the supply area is very less and we are all importing. So with all these issues, with the conducive atmosphere of a robust system of regulations, which is conducive, which is facilitative, the ambiguity has been cleared due to the rules, regulations, and the framework of the policies and incentives, I feel that this is a great opportunity. And as you all see, that necessity is the mother of invention. And today it is a necessity for us to have these medical devices, to innovate in India, to manufacture in India, to be self-reliant. This is all I feel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Prasad. I think building up a lot of confidence, I think, in the industry to actually move ahead and look at collaborations, look at technology transfers. When you talk about specifically, the harmonizing of the global health, harmonizing of the standards across the globe through the task force, the health task force, which I know has been very, very actively working back at CDSCO. I think that is what is actually not only bringing us at par with with the world standards, but also increasing the confidence of the Indian manufacturers and also the foreign investors to really get into this field. And plus, of course, the reassurance from your side that we have a robust system for regulations which can take care of any eventuality or any bottlenecks, and very nicely summed up as that necessity is the mother of invention. Age old saying, but cannot be more true than today. That today we have to invent because there's a necessity to do it. Maybe one reason to thank COVID for.
True.
Thank you, Dr. Prasad. Indeed, very encouraging to listen to you. Um, I would now like to request Mr. Gaurav Agarwal, who sits at the helm of IITPL, which is basically into cath labs. I'd like to request you to share your thoughts on it, and where do you see sitting in Bangalore, another part of the country where I am sitting right now, incidentally. What are your thoughts into it, and what are the key areas where you think we need to focus on?
So good evening, everyone. A lot of my eminent panelists have shared their thoughts on what it takes for India to be an attractive destination for MedTech. A lot of points I'm going to be drawing from a lot of what Nitin Mahajanji, Bhargavji, Pawan Chaudhary sir said. My thoughts are that today, despite all the initiatives that the government has taken, despite having at least half a dozen truly multinational medtech companies based out of India, we still have an import burden of about 43,000 crores. And if you look at that import burden, nearly 60% of that is in medical electronics. One of our eminent speakers alluded to the need of focusing on high-end medical equipment and devices. And that, I think, is where IITPL, the company that I represent, has made some progress. Cardiovascular disease in India today is still the largest killer. We lose about 2 million people every year to cardiovascular disease. And despite that, there are fewer than 1,500 such facilities which have cath labs and do stenting procedures, which are life-saving. What can we do to make that number 3,000 or 4,000 hospitals that offer such tertiary care services? So I wholeheartedly welcome three provisions in the budget. The first one is the Atmanirbhar Swasth Bharat Yojana, under which a lot of tertiary care blocks are planning to be set up at district levels. I think that is the need of the hour. Even today, in a country, there are several small towns with population of more than 2 lakhs, where patients have to travel 300 kilometers to get a life-saving procedure like angioplasty done. So the need of the hour is to build more tertiary care hospitals, invest in infrastructure building. We have very strong tailwinds as a nation, and I think we've seen that the resilience of the country was tested during COVID times and how we responded. From being a net importer to being a net exporter, it took the country only 7 to 8 months. And since I'm the last speaker, Pavanji, I really liked your jumla, your shairi, but I would also like to say that करना ही है तो कुछ काम करो कि आंधियां भी चलती रहें और दिया भी जलता रहे. So while it is important for us to be an attractive destination for foreign companies to invest, it's extremely important that homegrown medtech companies that have paved the way for at least half a dozen truly multinational companies. Bhargav heads one of those companies that exports to about 80 countries. Nitin Mahajanji is a shining example of that. Trivitron is yet another example. I think we need to have more of those. So I'm going to cut straight to the chase. And since I'm the last speaker, it's never easy being on an eminent panel and being the last speaker. So I'll straight cut to the chase, and I have a few recommendations. The first recommendation is to have a very predictable roadmap for regulatory process in India. The industry in which we work, the medical imaging industry, has currently 3 regulators. We have BIS, we have AERB, and now we have CDSCO. It becomes extremely daunting for a startup like us, which is in an area of very high entry barriers. There are only 9 cath lab manufacturers worldwide. We are one of them. But it becomes extremely daunting for a startup in such a high investment, such a high entry barrier area to navigate or to navigate this regulatory maze. So we need a predictable roadmap for regulatory approvals in India. We also need nominal protective tariff barriers. This has been done very successfully in some of the other industries. We've done that in the mobile phone industry, and we've seen the results. We've seen that. We've seen that in several other industries. We've seen that in, for example, pharmaceutical industry to some extent a few years ago, and we've seen the results. I think it's time to have nominal protective tariff barriers to promote Make in India. I would also like to recommend increasing basic customs duty on products that have extremely high import dependency. Today, if you look at medical electronics, which constitutes nearly 60% or 27,000 crores of the import burden, we still are extremely deficient in components, basic components, such as sensors, semiconductor chips, ventilator parts, fabrication units, machining units, milled units, vacuum die casted parts, so on and so forth. So it's extremely important that finished products have a higher basic customs duty by 2 to 5% points, and that will encourage a lot of domestic innovators and academia to come up with technologies on which there is very high import dependency. Another recommendation, somebody touched on this briefly, is to create an ecosystem of innovation in the country. If we look at the number of products that are institutions of eminence, and we have such a large and brilliant engineering pool from IITs, if we see the number of products that see the light of the day from such eminent institutions, it's just a handful. Is it because of capability? Perhaps not. Is it because of a complete ecosystem that is replete with funding to fund such ideas? Yes. So what we need, and I'm alluding to an idea, I was privy to a meeting in China where we have a collaborator, and he was mentioning that they have a 1,000 lights program. It's a very unique program, something like what Pawan Chaudhary ji mentioned about Singapore. If there is a lack of indigenization in a particular technology area, Chinese government gives you up to $3 million to get started and encourages you to tie up with a local academic institution of excellence, funds that idea up to the tune of $3 million, takes a small equity stake in that company. I think it's a brilliant way to kickstart the R&D and the innovation process in India, especially in the MedTech sector. Another recommendation that I have really is that the government has set up private equity funds to support innovation in the country, but most of those are fund of funds. How about setting up a fund to basically support the innovation and drive the innovation engine, especially in areas of high import dependence? We have extremely high import dependence in ophthalmology, in several areas such as X-ray tubes, sensors, semiconductor chips. And in those areas, the government should give either grants or take a small equity stake in startups and encourage them to build those technologies at home. My last recommendation would be to make India truly an attractive destination for MedTech is that India currently contributes to under 2% of the global almost $500 billion medical device market. There are several reasons, several contributing factors to it, but one of the large contributing factors is extremely high import dependence in areas that facilitate make in India. So we have very high dependence on imports, and there is very poor infrastructure. For example, a company like us uses very, very complex electrical, mechanical, X-ray parts, and there is a very sophisticated integration of all these three functions using software. So that's another area which is largely overlooked. We need to focus on medical software because that is the future. And if we are serious about reducing the quantum of import burden, we need to focus on component building ecosystem as well as medical software. So those are some of the points that I had, and thank you very much for this very engaging discussion. And I've learned a lot, and I hope these reach the right ears and some decisions are made.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Vivek Sehgal is having some technical issues, so I'll take over. First of all, congratulations, Gaurav Agarwal, sir, for opening a latest state-of-the-art cath lab in Gorakhpur in the presence of CM Yogi Adityanath ji. Congratulations for that. And apart from that, you have rightly said some recommendations. Actually, we are organizing this series to make a roadmap, National Medical Technology Roadmap, which we have mandated by Department of Pharmaceuticals. So we will be taking up these recommendations with the government. As you have rightly said, the budget is commendable with the Atmanirbhar Swasthya Bharat Yojana, and as we have said about the funding support for the startup, and this is the area to focus on medical software and component building to make the medical devices hub, to make the India hub for medical devices. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, sir. And we will be definitely taking up the suggestions said by you to the government. Now I will request Ms. Akriti Bajaj from Invest India to share her thoughts. Over to you, Akriti. You are not audible. You are not audible, ma'am.
Am I audible now or no?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so I'm okay, great. So I was saying that I just got a little worried when like Gaurav was saying that he's the last speaker. I was like, oh my God, have I missed my slot? But no,
Apologies.
great. No, no worries. Okay, so now I have your burden, I guess, that I have to end the event with a bang. So I think I would like to share a quick presentation because I just want to highlight few of the initiatives that the government has taken. So if Ravi, if you can give me access to share my screen. And I'll just maybe, since everybody has covered most of the points on the line of why India can become the next attractive destination and how we can achieve that vision of Atmanirbharta, I think most of the slides are covered, but I would like to just quickly go through some of the points that I have on the slide.
You are the panelist, so you can share the slide.
I don't have access. Somehow it says that I don't have access to share.
Just wait a second.
I don't have access to share. Do you want me to give it to you over WhatsApp? You can share your screen then. Okay, so I think I'm okay. Now I have the access. Thank you so much. Great. So I hope my screen is visible. And I just
visible.
Great. So
Visible.
I just had a presentation prepared, but I think we are running out of time, and I will just quickly focus on few of the points and maybe sort of reiterate and resonate with the thoughts of this eminent group. So as everybody mentioned, like we do have that potential of seeing the medical device market grow from the 111 billion it is at right now to the 50 billion vision that was created for the 2025. And we can certainly do that because we are right now the fourth largest medical device like market in Asia, and one of the top in one of the top 30 countries. So this is just a quick overview of the sector, and what and the coming slides will basically focus on how we can sort of achieve and bridge this gap between the 11 to 50 billion. So the next slide basically talks about the FDI equity inflows that we have had since April 2000. It's around 2.2 billion. It is little on the lesser side, but we have definitely seen a spike, as Mr. Chaudhary from MTI had mentioned, that we have seen a spike in the FDI coming in from major foreign medical device companies, which is a very good sign. And moving to the trade scenario, as everybody mentioned, we are all aware, we are part of the industry, and we have seen that the import dependency in the medical device sector is very high. It's around 70% right now. And in fact, the 70%, the more dependency also lies from the high-tech medical devices, which goes on to 95%, because India is a country which is doing very well on the consumables and the disposable side. So I just had one slide that I quickly prepared on the trade scenario, because I thought this was a very important and interesting slide to see how the trade scenario has shifted even during the COVID period, where we have seen that although the import has increased by 2.5%, the export has actually gone ahead and improved by around a 7.2 to 7.5%, which shows a great sign and a great leap of the sector and where we see ourselves. And in fact, the new numbers will be coming right now, and I'm sure there's going to be a very huge spike, because we have seen a lot of the PPE kits and the COVID RT-PCR kits getting exported and manufactured within India. So we'll definitely see a very huge spike in the exports in the coming data set as well. But this is a very good sign showing that India, although is like headed towards the path of creating Atmanirbharta, we are also sort of helping neighboring countries and exporting most of our products, high quality products, to the neighboring countries as well. So the next slide, I think these are some of the factors that all the speakers have sort of covered, where we are trying to understand why India could become a destination, the next MedTech destination, attractive destination. These are some of the points. This is just one drop from the ocean, but we have so many other factors that sort of can lead for us to become the next MedTech market. And I think, as everybody mentioned, that India is the pharmacy of the world. I mean, I would like to see India become the consumables disposable capital of the world, where all the products, at least in one segment, are going only from India. So that would be a sort of vision from my side, and also evolving into more innovative products, where we are transferring the technology rather than getting the technology from outside. So that would be my vision for the upcoming years and for this sector. So the next slide, I have mostly covered what government support and incentives are given, so that we can achieve that vision. These are some of the very common points that we are all aware of. So I've just put it up in a slide so that it can build some perspective. And I will definitely share these slides with the group so that you can have a look and we can have another round of discussion on these points as well. But I will like to quickly move. So this is the cluster development that has been mentioned, and of course the Andhra Pradesh MedTech Zone and the Sultanpur Park, like great parks. And I think we definitely need more parks like these. That is why the government had created the scheme for promotion of medical device park. But I would quickly like to move to, so this is more on the services that Invest India gives and how we can help domestic companies or global companies or anyone in the ecosystem to sort of achieve their vision and thereby help India reach a level where we are not only manufacturing for our domestic value, but we are also exporting our products. So this is just a quick summary of what we do, but I'll just pay heed to the time. This is These are some of the key stakeholders we work with in the government. These are some of the key non-government stakeholders that we have. We work very closely with all the associations as well. And this is just a quick summary, quick snapshot of the PLI 1.0 that has just gone by. The last date was 30th November. This is around 28 applications were received from around 23 medical device companies. The results are yet to be out. But I was like, if you frankly ask me, I was expecting that we could have a better response from the medical device industry, because when you compare it specifically to the pharma applications, I think I had written down, they have around, they received around 215 applications from 83 companies. So even the ratio wise, you think of it, I think a lot of the companies have applied for the bulk drugs, but somehow the medical device scheme, the PLI 1.0, didn't sort of attract a lot of applications. But I think taking forward from what we saw in PLI 1.0, the government has come up with PLI 2.0, which covers a very major segment that was very clearly missing in the PLI 1.0, which is the in vitro diagnostics. So I hope we receive a lot of applications on this, at least specifically from the Indian players, because we have that capability in IVD segment. So I would definitely hope that we sort of get a lot of applications for this. The guidelines for these schemes and everything, that all is still under formulation. So you'll be soon called for all the consultations and all the feedback that you want to give on these on the new scheme. And we'd definitely like to hear your recommendations on comments during those consultations as well. I just wanted to quickly spend maybe more time on this slide. I just wanted, like I heard in the group, that we need to sort of help domestic companies and global companies to sort of make their base in India, so that although everybody has their own vision, but I'm sure in this sector, our vision is to make sure that we, the patients, all patients have affordable and equitable healthcare access. So to achieve that vision, Atmanirbharta, and to maybe increase more exports and have more foreign exchange, the government in around June 2020, they came up with a unique setup, unique facilitation support center, which is the PDC, which stands for the Project Development Cell, and EGOS, which stands for the Empowered Group of Secretaries. So basically, as a mechanism, every ministry, like at least in this case, I'm mostly talking about Department of Pharmaceuticals and Ministry of Chemicals, and of course, Ministry of Health, in the case of healthcare related investments. So every ministry now has a PDC cell. They sort of help you in resolving all your issues. Like I've listed down all the objectives and all the, in fact, these objectives are not just written on paper. These are objectives that are happening, that are ongoing. We have helped a lot of companies resolve this issue, their issues, through this process, through this EGOS process. And all these, the empowered group of secretaries are basically cabinet level secretaries. So they sort of listen to all the issues that you face, whether be it the very old issue of an inverted duty structure, and whether it's anything else that you're facing for the custom duties and everything. So those are some of the key issues that this committee sits down and discusses. And we, and a lot of, and like the government officials from the Department of Pharmaceuticals, they are very sensitized. They hear each and every investor's problems and where they would like to invest. They offer any recommendations, and if you have any suggestions, anything, they are very open to hear your thoughts and see where the sector can, like where the sector can be in 2030 or 2035, and where we see ourselves, like we shouldn't technically have an import dependency. At least we should have 50% import dependency if we want to at least achieve the healthcare goals, especially the sustainable development goals as well. So I think this is a very interesting mechanism that has been created, and it has been very successful. As I mentioned, that we have done a lot of outreach activities. A lot of companies have met the officials. A lot of issues have been resolved, and basically this is like providing a year of the industry, providing a year to the industry in the ministries. So this is a very interesting mechanism that has been created. And of course, as one of the speakers had mentioned, the budget has been a good, the budget has been good highlight for the a good boost to the healthcare sector, especially the 137% increase. I think that is a very huge jump, and that was certainly a must to achieve our healthcare goals. So that is certainly there. And as one of the speakers had mentioned, that a lot of companies are exploring R&D, India as a R&D and digital hub. We should sort of not only focus on maybe manufacturing, but we should definitely focus on utilizing the engineering talent pool that we have in India, and the R&D capabilities that can be built. And some of the companies, as I've listed here, they have started going from R&D to manufacturing, and they have a lot of employees. They provide jobs on campus, jobs to a lot of people, and this is just like a very quick example of what is happening on the R&D and digital front, and there are several other examples. And of course, with the new upcoming policies, the government is planning to launch a R&D policy and everything. We would see more and more R&D, more and more companies coming to set up R&D, and we can become the MedTech R&D hub for the world. In fact, not only for India. So these are just my quick 2 cents on the entire sector. I had a lot of more slides, but I think due to paucity of time, I will keep it limited and maybe open the floor to discuss some of these points. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Akriti Bajaj, for giving the overview of the medical device industry and the growth factors of the industry, which will make India to be an attractive destination. As you have rightly said, the COVID era has surely give the up to the medical device market with increase in the export of 7.2%. As you have also highlighted the upcoming PLI version 2.0, thank you for sharing that slide. It was really helpful for the industry and all. I have one question. We have received the advanced questions from the audience. So as Mr. Gaurav Agarwal sir has mentioned about the custom duties and all, so I have a question for him. If we increase the custom duty, it will make the medical devices expensive. So how do we address the affordability and access to high quality devices without compromising the patient safety? If Gaurav Agarwal sir can answer.
I think it's a very valid question, and a decision like this cannot be taken in isolation. We obviously have to see capabilities as well as we have to see domestic capabilities, and it is a phased. So our recommendation has always been to implement these in a phased manufacturing manner. We've already been discussing PMP, and we've recommended that a phased manufacturing program where progressively custom duties on various finished imported goods where the high import dependency are increased. And obviously there has to be a balanced view. You know, if there is no if there's no capability in the country, or if there is adequate inventory, then you cannot take that decision overnight. It has to be a phased rollout of increase in customs duties. I hope.
Thank you so much, sir. As we have a paucity of time, I'll request Mr. Bhargav Kotadia, sir, our co-chair of Pharmaceutical and Medical Devices Committee, to sum up the session with his concluding remarks and give a formal vote of thanks to our panelists.
Before that, Raviji, if I could just make one small comment on Akriti's very good presentation, as well as Mr. Gaurav, very fine comment. I feel
Akriti, you were last but foremost, as Bhargav described, not last but the least, but last but foremost. I think CCI had kept kept the best for the last. And what Gaurav said, that regarding the Diya piece, I am reminded of another quote, Gaurav. It says, "Mana ki andhera hai ghana, किसने कहा दिया जलाना है मना." And on that note, I would like to make a request to Akriti that जो दिया जलाने की तीली है, उसमें से एक तीली इन्वेस्ट इंडिया भी है. तो इन्वेस्ट इंडिया की लीडरशिप like Mr. Deepak Bagla should be also a part of that EGOS, because Invest India is the bridge between the investors and the government. The EGOS is only made of government people, which is great. All the top guys are there. And if there will be also some representative who understands the government as well as the industry, like Mr. Deepak Bagla or somebody in your leadership, that
We'll definitely do that. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Now I would request Mr. Bhargav Kotadia sir for his concluding remarks and a vote of thanks.
Thank you, everyone. To our chief guest, Dr. Prasad, Dr. Subramanian, Mr. Multani, Mr. Chaudhary, Goroji, and Akriti, I would like to thank all of you for sharing your thoughts and innovative ideas, with the industry members and the host of attendees online for sharing your views to make India an attractive destination for MedTech manufacturing. I would also like to especially thank our session moderator, Mr. Vivek Sehgal, for a wonderful moderation, and the PhD team for organizing this webinar, and our distinguished PhD industry members, students, and delegates who are all in attendance today. With a collaborative approach, India is poised to exponentially grow its medical devices sector to its full potential, not only to improve standards of healthcare in India, but also to emerge as a trusted partner to the world for healthcare transformation. The roadmap that we are working on should certainly focus on innovation and research and development as a strong pillar of building India's best-in-class manufacturing ecosystem. And I was so delighted throughout the webinar to hear each panel member especially emphasize on this point. I'm sure India can emerge as a significant medical device manufacturer and become, as all of us have said and wish, the factory for the world, like the pharma industry. With these words, once again, I would like to thank the Department of Pharmaceuticals, Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers, and Government of India for their support, and all the dignitaries present for their valuable suggestion. With the committee, along with the rest of the PhD, we'll make sure to take up all the points suggested today in the webinar, and we'll be submitting the report of the complete series to the ministries and for all of you reviewing and reading very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kotadia, and thanks Ravi for filling in beautifully well. And I think the moderation credit should partly go to Ravi as well today.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Ravi.
I can see Dr. Subramanian. I think he has some final comments to make, sir.
Thank you so much. I think I have very rarely had so much that I have picked up in an hour's time. I think tremendous width and tremendous depth from each speaker. And, I was not only sort of acquired a lot of new things, but I think it was fascinating the way each of you communicated. And thank you all. Actually, thoroughly enjoyed being part of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Subramanian, for your encouragement and your support as always. And as Mr. Pawan Chaudhary said, PhD CCI tries to keep the best for the last. I think the silver lining from Akriti's presentation and the exchange of, if I can say, shero shairi, which happened also, I think lightened up a lot of us while imparting a lot of knowledge. So thank you very much, all the participants, and my special thanks to the Joint Drug Controller, as well as the eminent panelists, to the chair, Dr. Subramanian, and to the co-chair, Mr. Bhargav Kutadia. We're wishing you a very, very good evening and a nice cheerful evening. And the cheer also has the word cheers in it. So have a great time.
Friday. Yes,
So
thank you.
Thank you very much.
So have a
Thank
great
you.
evening.
Thank you so much.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
It was such an
You
interesting
too.
discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.